From life in the spotlight to federal charges, here are 10 reality stars who've ended up doing time. Let's take a look. Joe and Teresa Giudice are reality TV personalities who became famous on the Bravo series The Real Housewives of New Jersey. In 2014, both Joe and Teresa were indicted on multiple counts of fraud, including conspiracy to commit mail fraud, wire fraud, and bank fraud, as well as making false statements on loan applications and bankruptcy fraud. The charges stem from allegations that they'd falsified income documents and loan applications to obtain millions of dollars in loans and mortgages. The couple was facing a possible 50 years in prison. They both pleaded guilty to several charges, including conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud.
Arriving at a federal court in Newark, New Jersey, holding hands, Teresa and Joe Giudice, the stars of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, today pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit mail fraud, wire fraud, and bankruptcy fraud.
Teresa and Geoffrey Giudice both admitted to a federal judge that over the better part of a decade, they were engaged in a scheme to defraud financial institutions and the IRS.
It was the culmination of an almost 8-month-long legal fight, where federal prosecutors presented evidence that the reality TV star's lavish lifestyle was funded partially on ill-gotten gains. Outside the court, Teresa Giudice's attorney read a statement from her.
Today, I took responsibility for a series of mistakes I made several years ago. I am heartbroken that this is affecting my family.
In October 2014, Joe was sentenced to 3 years and 5 months in federal prison, and Teresa was sentenced to 1 year and 3 months. The judge allowed them to serve their sentences one after the other, since they had 4 children at home. Teresa served her time first, then Joe reported for his 41-month sentence. In October 2019, after the completion of his sentence, Joe, who was born in Italy and had never become a U.S. citizen, was deported back to Italy, where he now lives. Tim Norman is a TV personality known for appearing on the reality show Welcome to Sweetie Pies, which aired on the Oprah Winfrey Network, OWN. The show followed the operations of a soul food restaurant owned by his mother, Robbie Montgomery, in St. Louis, Missouri. In August 2020, Tim Norman was arrested and charged in connection with a murder-for-hire plot. The charges allege that Norman conspired with an exotic dancer named Teresa Ellis to murder his nephew, Andre Montgomery Jr., in order to collect on a life insurance policy. Andre Montgomery Jr. was the grandson of Robbie Montgomery and the nephew of Tim Norman. According to prosecutors, Tim Norman and Teresa Ellis communicated via cell phone and plotted the murder, with Ellis allegedly luring Andre to a location where he was shot and killed in March 2016.
James Timothy Norman, seen in this mugshot, is now charged with conspiracy in the murder-for-hire death of his nephew, 18-year-old Andre Montgomery. Federal court documents detail the meticulous murder happening all in the midst of the family filming their popular cable TV reality show, Welcome to Sweetie Pies. The show, based off the popular soul food restaurant in St. Louis.
All this stuff is at Sweetie Pies, but we're really excited about our tea, my tea.
Federal investigators say the murder-for-hire starts with Norman obtaining a $450,000 life insurance policy on his nephew back in 2014. Fast forward to March of 2016, federal investigators say Norman had been in contact with Memphis, Tennessee exotic dancer Teresa Ellis, leading up to the murder, with both arriving in St. Louis at the same time. Court docs show Ellis and Norman used prepaid cell phones to communicate on the day of the murder before locating the 18-year-old. That's where authorities say the gunman found Andre Montgomery in the 3600 block of Natural Bridge Avenue and shot him to death around 8:02 in the evening. Court docs say Ellis's phone was pinged in the area. Shortly thereafter, the exotic dancer fled St. Louis back to Memphis, calling Norman in the process. Days later, authorities say Ellis deposited over $9,000 in cash into various bank accounts, and Montgomery called in to collect on his nephew's life insurance policy he set up. Both Montgomery and Ellis are now federally charged in the conspiracy in the murder for hire. Montgomery was arrested in Jackson, Mississippi, as he was in the process of reopening another Sweetie Pies location.
In March 2021, Tim Norman pleaded guilty to federal charges of conspiracy to commit murder for hire and conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud. In April 2021, Tim Norman was sentenced to serve a term of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Teresa Ellis, who lured Andre to his death, was sentenced to 3 years. The insurance agent who fraudulently helped Norman apply for multiple insurance policies on Andre Montgomery pleaded guilty to wire and mail fraud conspiracy and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Travell Anthony Hill, the actual triggerman in this murder, was sentenced to 32 years in prison. Maurice Fayne, also known as Arkansas Mo, was one of the stars of the VH1 reality show Love and Hip Hop Atlanta.
I'm so happy that we are finally in this place. It took forever.
Right.
And now I gotta unpack all this stuff. We got so much unpacking to do. This is crazy.
We finally got in. I mean, what you gonna do with your house?
He was arrested on May 13, 2020 for federal bank fraud charges. The charges stemmed from a $3.7 million Paycheck Protection Program PPP loan that Fayne misused during the COVID-19 pandemic. The money was supposedly to help to maintain and support a trucking business he owned. However, among the improper expenses, Fayne spent the loan money on a Rolls-Royce, a Rolex watch, $85,000 for custom-made jewelry, $900,000 to start a new business in Arkansas, and $230,000 given to associates of his to support a previous Ponzi scheme he'd been running.
A few more local headlines we're following for you tonight. 11 Hip Hop Atlanta cast member Maurice Fayne has been indicted by a federal grand jury in connection to loans from the Paycheck Protection Program. That program intended to help small businesses impacted by COVID-19. The indictment claims Fayne applied for a loan of more than $3.7 million for his business, but he's accused of using the money to lease a Rolls-Royce and buy expensive jewelry and pay off child support.
In September 2021, after pleading guilty, Fayne was sentenced to more than 17.5 years in federal prison for conspiracy, wire fraud, and bank fraud. He was also sentenced to 5 years of supervised release and ordered to pay restitution of $4.4 million. Josh Duggar is known for his appearances on the reality television show 19 Kids and Counting, which aired on the TLC network from 2008 to 2015. The show followed the lives of the Duggar family, known for their conservative values and large number of children. In April 2021, Josh Duggar was arrested by federal agents in Arkansas. He was charged with receiving and possessing child sexual abuse materials.
The 33-year-old was arrested yesterday by U.S. Marshals in Arkansas. He's accused of downloading child sexual abuse material. He appeared in an Arkansas courtroom today via Zoom and pleaded not guilty. Government officials have requested he be detained pending trial. A detention hearing is scheduled for next week. Now, in May of 2015, he admitted to wrongdoing after it was reported that he inappropriately touched 5 minors. TLC canceled 19 Kids and Counting in 2015 after allegations surfaced about his behavior.
The charges stemmed from allegations that he had downloaded over 600 explicit images depicting child sexual abuse, which were found on a computer at a used car dealership he owned. Duggar, himself a father of 6, was facing up to 20 years in prison. He was found guilty in December 2021 of these charges and was later sentenced to 12.5 years in prison. In addition, Duggar was also ordered to pay restitution to the victims and will be subject to supervised release for the rest of his life. Geoffrey Paschel, a former star of the reality TV show 90 Day Fiancé, was arrested on serious domestic assault charges. The charges stemmed from an incident in June 2019, when his ex-fiancé reported that Paschel assaulted her at his home in Rocky Hill, Tennessee. She alleged that Paschel grabbed her by the neck, violently attacked her, and dragged her, and that he also took her cell phone and did not allow her to leave the residence. She was able to escape to a neighbor's house once Paschel had fallen asleep. During his trial in October 2021, Paschel testified that the victim's bruises were self-inflicted. However, the jury didn't buy it and found him guilty.
We, the jury, find the defendant Geoffrey Ian Paschel guilty of aggravated kidnapping.
And as to count 2, how does the jury find?
We, the jury, find the defendant Geoffrey Ian Paschel guilty of domestic violence.
And as to count 3, how does the jury find?
We, the jury, find the defendant Geoffrey Ian Paschel guilty of interference with emergency call.
Thank you. Please be seated, everyone. If you please pass those verdict forms to the court officer. If that is the verdict of each and every juror, would you please signify by raising your right hand? Count 12 hands. Thank you all.
He was convicted of aggravated kidnapping and domestic assault. His prior criminal history, which includes previous convictions on drug trafficking charges, played a part in his sentencing. The judge sentenced him to 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole. He is scheduled to be released in October of 2038. Jen Shah was a star of the reality TV show Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Shah was depicted as a successful businesswoman with a lavish lifestyle. She was arrested in March 2021 during filming for the reality show.
We're looking for Jen Shah.
She just left.
I need to go to the house? Okay. Hold on 1 second. Can you turn this?
Bro, one of the GoPros didn't roll, but I rolled.
What's going on?
We have to just talk to her to make sure she's okay.
She left here, she's on the phone, and she left here. She got in the car, took her bag, and she said that her husband had internal bleeding and she was headed straight to the hospital.
Hey, you know what? This is so weird, Ryan. Can you tell me what's going on? Would Homeland Security show up for that? I mean, like, I'm like literally shook right now. It just scared me. Like, is something bigger happening? Should I be stressed? I'm shaking. I'm physically shaking.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
What?
Oh my gosh.
You never talked to me.
What?
Oh my gosh.
What?
Real Housewives star charged in massive fraud money laundering scheme.
No.
I have the f***ing chills.
No.
She was charged by federal authorities with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. The charges were related to her involvement in a telemarketing scheme that targeted elderly individuals, some of whom lost tens of thousands of dollars.
Jen Shah and her partner Stuart Smith arrested. Federal authorities say the two carried out a wide-ranging telemarketing scheme that defrauded hundreds of victims, many of whom were over age 55. Special agent in charge Peter Fitzhugh tells us Shah and Smith flaunted their lavish lifestyle to the public as a symbol of their success. In reality, they allegedly built their opulent lifestyle at the expense of vulnerable, often elderly, working-class people.
The scheme defrauded thousands of people since 2012. Shah and her assistant Stuart Smith were accused of selling fraudulent business services through their company. She faced up to 30 years in prison, but she pleaded guilty in July 2022 to conspiracy to commit wire fraud. She was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. As part of her plea deal, Shah agreed to forfeit $6.5 million and pay up to $9.5 million in restitution. She's serving her time in a federal prison in Bryan, Texas. Todd and Julie Chrisley are reality TV stars known for their show Chrisley Knows Best, which aired on the USA Network. The show followed the millionaire real estate tycoons and their families' lavish lifestyle in Atlanta and Nashville. In August 2019, Todd and Julie Chrisley were indicted by a federal grand jury on multiple counts of conspiracy, bank fraud, wire fraud, and tax evasion. The charges allege that they had engaged in various financial crimes, including submitting false documents to banks and evading taxes on millions of dollars in income.
Todd and Julie Chrisley are in legal hot water.
We're going to get a second opinion.
The married couple, along with their accountant, indicted by a federal grand jury in Atlanta on 12 counts, including tax evasion, bank fraud, and wire fraud.
You can't offer me the help that I need.
The Chrisleys are best known for their hit reality show, Chrisley Knows Best, on the USA Network. Now in its 7th season, it follows the busy lives of the wealthy real estate mogul and his family.
I've made 95% of all the money that we've ever made in real estate.
According to this 27-page indictment, the couple did not pay income taxes from 2013 to 2016, and the Chrisleys tried to secure loans by using false documents to banks. Todd has been known to flaunt his wealth on the show.
I make millions of dollars a year.
The family's lavish lifestyle often on full display, including this opulent 20,000 square foot mansion outside of Atlanta.
I want to make a note here. Just because rich and you're on a TV show doesn't mean that the law is not going to come and get you.
In June 2022, they were found guilty of committing tax evasion and defrauding banks out of more than $30 million in fraudulent loans. In November, Todd was sentenced to 12 years and Julie to 7 years in prison. They each also received an order of 16 months probation. In January 2023, Todd began his 12-year sentence at the federal prison camp in Pensacola, Florida. And Julie reported to the Federal Medical Center, FMC facility in Lexington, Kentucky to serve her 7-year sentence. Scott Menaged, a former real estate investor and star of the Discovery Channel show Property Wars, was charged with multiple fraud schemes in Arizona. The show Property Wars aired on Discovery for 2 seasons beginning in 2011, and featured Menaged and others bidding on foreclosed homes without being able to see the inside of the home. Menaged orchestrated multiple fraud schemes resulting in more than $30 million in losses. He embezzled millions in loans meant for real estate purchases and provided fake real estate purchase documents to conceal the fraud.
These court documents read like a Hollywood movie, only these victims were in real life.
Is this thing gonna stop?
This is how the world met Scott Menaged.
Well, I mean, except for you.
Starring in the hit reality show Property Wars, filmed right here in the Valley.
No, 66,000.
In the show, Menaged bids big against other real estate investors for homes.
I'm gonna bid $500.
But as Menaged was wheeling and dealing on TV, court documents reveal he was cashing in on his 15 minutes of fame.
3,000 a Doug?
By defrauding lenders out of tens of millions of dollars.
Hold on, slow down.
Attorneys say Menaged would go to one lender to secure a loan for his winning bids, then turn around and get another loan for the same home from a different lender, using one loan to actually pay for the home and pocketing the rest.
You can sell anything.
Menaged is also accused of creating fake documents to make it look like he was actually buying a home, when in reality, he was just keeping the money.
Menaged used the embezzled money to support his lavish lifestyle that included travel, million-dollar homes, and luxury vehicles. Facing potentially decades in prison, he pled guilty to bank fraud, money laundering, and aggravated identity theft. After his conviction, Scott Menaged was sentenced to 17 years in prison. The court also ordered him to pay the various victims $33 million in restitution. As we can see, even if you're rich, famous, or popular, the long arm of the law will find you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below, and we'll see you in the next video.